What's up guys, it's Dwayne back again with another video, back again for a reaction, and today's a great, wonderful, beautiful day. Do you know why? Because we're doing a Finland day. 10 culture shocks, Finland, Nomad Life Part 1. Without further ado, let's get into this reaction, let's go.
Moikka kaikille! Mun nimi on Raakel, englanniksi Rachel. Tervetuloa! Today I wanted to talk to you about different culture shocks and things that were difficult for me to adjust to when I lived in Finland for 4 years. As a Texas girl moving to Turku, Finland, these are the things that I experienced to be a bit challenging while I was there. Some of these things might not be actual culture shocks, but maybe just something that I had to get used to, and it took time for me to adjust to when I moved to Finland. Coming from Texas, Finland was like night and day. It was really different for me, and it was definitely a life-changing experience, which I am so grateful for. Before I moved to Finland, I didn't know exactly where Finland was. I didn't know anything about the country, so I had to look it up on a map. Other than traveling to Mexico when I was in my 20s, I hadn't really been outside of the United States. I've traveled all inside of the United States, but never outside. So not only was I going to a different country for the first time that wasn't connected to my country, but I was actually moving there. So
I can't relate. I've been to many countries outside of my country. However, I moved somewhere very far away from my country without ever being to that place before. So I understand in that sense.
So I didn't have a lot of expectations. I knew it was going to be cold, given where it's located, and so in my mind I did kind of expect that there would be like igloos, maybe the Eskimo looking people, you know, with the fur, like big gray coats on and stuff like that, and polar bears. But as far as expectations, that's about like all I had really expected. I had heard that everything in Europe was smaller from people who had traveled there before, smaller compared to how things are in the United States. And it's true that everything is bigger in Texas. Everything is bigger in the United States, but everything is much bigger in Texas. And that I found that to be true. Here are 10 things that were either a culture shock to me, or it was just difficult for me to adjust to, or maybe it was just something that was really different. The first thing was taking off my shoes at the door. We've always, my whole life, worn shoes in the house, never even thought about it. Even
very similar to Sweden then, taking your shoes off at the door. In my family, we've always taken our shoes off. It's just been the given thing to do. That's a polite thing to do. Don't go outside in the mud, in the dirt, and bring that into your home. It's really simple, and I don't understand other people that don't do that, but I'm guessing Americans, it's common to walk through your house with your shoes on.
Even during the rainy seasons here, you just wipe them off on the doormat before you come in, and it never was given any thought to take your shoes off. All of my childhood and growing up, homes that I ever was in had carpeted floors, and in Finland the floors were either plastic or vinyl or something like that. And then I learned, okay, you have to take your shoes off at the door, and I learned the weather, and it helps to keep the floors cleaner. It made a lot of sense. It took some time to get used to, because I was so used to wearing my shoes inside the house. I can't tell you how many times I heard,
Why would you, I'm with Finnish people, why would you want to come into your house with your dirty shoes? They've been outside. You don't know what you're stepping on when you're walking. To her, that's weird. Why is that weird? That should not be weird. It's basic hygiene. I don't know. It's weird that she thinks it's weird.
Yeah. Kengät pois ovella. I had to hear that over and over from repetition to learn. But now that's so ingrained in me that I actually brought that habit back with me to the States when I moved back. And because it's logical. It makes sense. You don't have to clean your floors as much because you take your shoes off at the door, and therefore you eliminate a lot of the dirt and debris and all of the crap that gets brought in with it. So to me, I think that's amazing. That makes so much sense. I'm glad that I picked up that habit. Hopefully I've been inspiring people here to do the same. So as you can see, now in our RV we have some carpeted floor, but we're going to be taking that up and put some laminate or vinyl floors down, something like that, because I just think it's much more practical. That's like one of the other things I learned living in Finland is practicality. Number 2 would be greeting or smiling at strangers. Coming from Texas, you greet everyone. Like, you go into the convenience store and you're like, hi, how are you? How's your day going? The small talk kind of stuff that Finnish people really don't like. So I grew up doing that, you know, you pass by someone and you're like, you smile, you make eye contact, you greet them, and you ask them, how are you? How's your day going? And you may or may, you know, like, you already know, it's assumed you're not going to sit there and talk to them. It's the way that we greet each other here. And so when I first went into a store in Finland, into a convenience store, and I was checking out, like I said to the clerk, I'm like, hi, how are you? And he looked at me like I was some crazy drunken woman. He looked almost frightened.
It's just kind of a European thing in a way. Yeah, parts of England's definitely like that. You just don't speak to strangers. In the north of England, you're more likely to say hello to a stranger and have small talk, but in southern England, like London especially, you do not speak to strangers, and people will look at you weirdly like, why are you talking to me?
When I said it to him, and I was just like, oh, okay, that wasn't awkward at all, you know, because he didn't answer me or anything. He just looked at me like I was crazy. And so from then on out, I realized, okay, maybe things are going to be a little bit different here, and I don't need to greet people if it's going to, like, freak them out. I was told that, like, in Finland, 2 people could use the same bus stop for 2 years, every morning, go to work at the same time, every morning for 2 years, and never know each other's name. In the whole 2 years, they never learned each other's names because they don't really talk to strangers. And after living there for 4 years, I really do believe that that's true. Number 3. The first time I went into a grocery store in Finland and I bought something, and I was waiting for them to put it in my bag, and they didn't put it in the bag. So in Finland, they don't give you bags. You have to buy your own bag, or you bring your own bag. And that was completely new to me. Like, I just did not understand that at all. Like,
they don't have that in the States.
Why do I have to just...
Yeah, most of Europe now, it's like you either bring your own bag, or it's kind of expected you bring your own bag, or they'll charge you to have a plastic bag, and it's like 20 pence in the UK, so I don't know what it is in other countries in Finland, but yeah, it's normal.
Just carry my stuff out. Like, I have to pay for a bag. You know, it's like, what, 10 cents or something like that. It's not even like a big deal. But for me, coming from here, where everything's just kind of like convenient and available, like, at first
it's called saving the environment.
Like, why do I have to pay for my own bag? Like, I'm buying this stuff here. Why do I have to buy my own bag? This doesn't make any sense. And so, but regardless to say, like, I got used to it. I started to bring my own bags to the store every time that I went to the store. And that is another habit that I have carried over to here, because I did not realize how wasteful we are in the stores here. Like, they will literally put, like, you go to Walmart, they will literally put 1 or 2 items in one bag, one plastic bag, and give it to you. You could buy maybe 10 things, and sometimes even come out with like 7 bags. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy the amount of waste that goes on here, and I didn't realize that because I grew up around it, and it was normal to me. I'm really happy that nowadays I can see, you know, I'm more aware of like how much I waste, what I use, and everything like that, and I attribute that to my wonderful, beautiful Finland experience. I think it's great when they encourage you to bring your own bags, because that eliminates waste. It eliminates this unnecessary nonsense plastic bags, which I have grown to hate plastic. And in fact, like, Corey and I are on a mission, my husband and I are on a mission. We have a goal to phase out as much plastic out of our lives as possible, starting with straws, because I don't want them to end up in some sea turtle's nose. I'm tired of seeing those videos like
plastic straws. I don't even think I can't remember the last time I've had a plastic straw in the UK. We just don't do that.
That is just really sad to me. It's great there that they, charge you for a bag, because you're less likely to just like throw something away that you just paid for, or you bring your own bag, which just totally eliminates the whole need for a plastic bag anyway. I think that's awesome. 4, that would be the awkward silence that's actually okay and normal in Finland. That for me was like probably one of the most outstanding weird experiences that I had when I lived there. I met a lady at a church meeting and we exchanged emails, and some week later maybe I got an email from her and she was like, "Hi, it was really nice to meet you. I was wondering if you would like to go on a coffee with me, but if you don't, like, don't worry about it. I don't want to impose, like, I'm not at all trying to, like, impose on you, so if you don't want to, I completely understand." So I wrote back and I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go." And so I went on the coffee date and we sat down, and I think she got something to eat and I got something to eat, and we each paid for our own, which was like different here, because sometimes here, like, if you ask someone to go with you somewhere, like on a coffee or out to eat or something like that, unless it's said beforehand, most of the time, like, the person that said gave the invitation would pay for both. I mean, that's not.
No, that doesn't really happen in the UK. I mean, yeah, it's a nice gesture, but it's not assumed that the other person's going to pay for you just because you're both going for coffee
Every single time, but that's just been my experience most of the time here. And so that was kind of different. And I didn't expect her to pay for it anyway, but that was just like a slight difference that I noticed there, because we went out and, like, she paid for her own, I paid for mine, and that was totally cool. The weird part was when we sat down and we didn't really know each other, and honestly, I'm a bit introverted and shy myself. Like, when meeting strangers, I'm not a social person. I don't know how to I'm not good at small talk. So in that way, like, I am kind of like very Finnish, because I hate small talk. I really don't like it. It's boring to me. Like, I would just rather not have a conversation if there's going to be small talk. But at the same time, like, I'm not good at diving deep with someone either. And the first time I meet you and getting to know someone, like, I just don't have a lot of experience doing that. And so, yeah, that was kind of awkward. And so it was just silent. And I'm thinking, like, the whole time, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm ruining this, I don't know what to say, like, what am I supposed to ask, like, how's the weather, like, where you live, what do you think about the weather, like, talking about the weather or something dumb and dull like that. But those really superficial questions, like, when I would ask them, she would answer, like, very shortly, like, "Do you like the cold weather? Like, do you like living here in Finland?" "It doesn't bother me." Okay. Next question. And then it's like I ask the question and I get a short answer and I'm just like, this isn't going anywhere. And for me, coming from Texas, like, it's weird. Unless you're with family, it's really, really weird and awkward to have, like, this long period of silence. And so it was just silent, and I'm thinking in my mind that this is going horribly and that I'm just, like, blowing it, and this woman probably thinks that I'm, like, boring as heck. And I find out later that actually that is quite normal with Finnish people, and that she probably, like, had a great time. And then I also found out that it was probably very hard for her to be the first person to reach out and get.
Right. Okay. So she thought, she was like, this is completely normal. It's going completely okay. They're just having a nice, relaxing fika, or what do you call it in Finland? I think it's similar. You have like a tea. You're having a tea. I think, do you guys call it fika? What do you call it? I know the Swedes call it fika. But she just thought, yeah, this is fine. nice calming silence. And she was panicking, thinking, "Oh no, we haven't said anything for ages." It's interesting the difference in culture.
And give the invitation to go have coffee, because typically, like, I think in Finland people don't normally make that like first initial step to do it, if I understood right. That was
Wow.
definitely different for me. And then just to be around Finnish people and have them sit, and there's like, you go to someone's house to hang out with them, but you just sit on the couch and you're just quiet, like you don't talk, like you just sit there with one another, and that's normal. Okay. It's weird because I don't like small talk, but at the same time I don't like weird, awkward silences. But again, I learned from it, and I learned that it's actually okay to not have the atmosphere and air filled with a bunch of useless, nonsense small talk. So, number 5, being punctual. It is very important to Finnish people that you're on time and that you're punctual. Like, if you say you're going to be there at a certain time, or they ask you to be there at a certain time, please be there at that time. First time that a family had us over for dinner, I was really, really late. Like 20 minutes late. And here it's like fine, like if you're gonna be late, you just like give someone
Let
a
them
call and
know.
be like, hey, I'm running late, it's no big deal, 10 minutes late, I'll see you in 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, it's not a big deal. Let them know that I was running late, and then not, on top of running late, like I got lost, and so I was even later than what I was gonna be. So it was about 20 minutes late, and then I got there, and I could tell that they were really offended. Like, they were pretty upset. They're pretty mad. They were smiling. Oh, hi, we're glad you made it. But it was just kind of like this awkward, like, tension for a little bit. And
Oh, so punctuality is very important in Finland. Yeah, in the UK, as long as you let someone know that you're going to be late beforehand, it tends to be okay. But yeah, I can understand why it's annoying.
learned later that it's actually because I was late, and it's important to be punctual there. Number 6. In Finland, when you make a purchase, you buy something, the tax is already added in to the total of what you're going to pay.
Yeah.
Here, when you buy something in Texas, the tax is 8.25%. So when you buy something, tax is going to be added on top of that. For example, in Finland, you buy something and it's marked on the shelf, €1.99. Like, I don't think they price stuff there like that, but I can't remember off the top of my head like some of the prices. But just for an example, 1.99 euros. When you go to check out, you're gonna pay 1.99 euros.
The fact that Americans think that's weird. The price says this amount, and I paid this amount. Well, yeah. If something says it, I would expect if something says it's $2.99. If I get to the checkout, it should be $2.99. And Americans don't realize it's very weird that they pick up an item and it says a certain price, and then they get to the checkout and the cashier's like, oh, we have to add extra tax. So really, that cake that you were going to purchase for $4.99 is really $5.80. You know, it's like, that's not normal.
They don't add the tax like at the register. Here in Texas, all over the United States, but in Texas we have an 8.25% sales tax, which they add at the register. So on the shelf it might be marked $1.99, but when you get to the register, on top of that $1.99, they're going to add an 8.25% sales tax. So you can't ever really know like how much it's gonna cost. I mean, you can if you want to sit there and do the math on all of your stuff before you get to the register, which, by the way, some of it isn't taxable. Food items aren't taxable here, I don't think, and so you don't really know for sure how much it's going to be beforehand, before you check out and they ring you up and then they tell you your total. And I think, to me, that's just kind of nonsense. Like, after living in Finland, I think it's great. Like, you see how much it costs, and that's how much you're gonna pay. And I'm like, why can't we do that here?
Duh.
And it took me a while to get used to that, because I was so used to, like, in my mind, like, trying to add it up so I know, like, okay, am I gonna have enough? Like, I know it says it's $1.50, but $1.50 plus 8.25, like, you know, who wants to do all that junk? It's unnecessary. Like, why can't we adopt some of the ways of Finland here? I mean, it's just more simple, and it's logical, and it just makes a lot more sense. All right, number 7. Like, they weren't kidding when they said everything is smaller in Europe. Everything is smaller. The apartment that I lived in there was, if I remember right, 65 square meters.
Yeah.
And
it's an apartment.
It's actually kind of small compared to what I was used to and what I had grown up in apartments that I had lived in myself, living in Texas. So it was a little bit, like, frustrated in the beginning, because growing up with having a lot of space, you think you need a lot of space. But I'm glad that I got to experience that, because it has helped me to become more of a minimalist and to be able to be happier with less space, happier with less, because you have to get rid of, you can't have a lot of crap and a small space like that. I mean, you can, but I mean, I don't want to do that. It's like, took me some time to get used to. I was complaining about it in the beginning. I wasn't happy about it. Was so small and it was so crammed and all this stuff. And looking back, like, who I am today, like, to that person who lived in Finland, I'm like, if you only knew how different you would be. Like, because here I am now living in an RV, which is way smaller than any Finnish apartment that I was ever in, and I'm in here feeling like this is a bit excessive for me. It's like even too much space for us now. We're even thinking about downsizing into a smaller, like, trailer that we can just pull with my car. So I don't know, we'll see where that goes.
Interesting.
Yeah,
they live in a trailer. They live in an RV. That's really interesting. She's got an interesting life. Nomad life. Oh, so does she just drive around and live wherever she wants?
65 square meters was too small for me, but now, you know, like, I'm living in this tiny, tiny space, and I love it, and it doesn't feel tiny to me. But everything was smaller there. The apartments were smaller there. The portions were smaller there. And I think that that's great, because here you can, with the amount of food that they give you when you go out to eat, is literally enough food for 2 people. There's no way that I can ever eat, like, a full meal when I go out to eat, that I could eat, like, a full plate of what they give me here when I'm in Texas. I always have to take it with me, half of it or 3/4 of it, to take it with me, because I can't finish it. But in Finland, it was, like, an adequate amount. So you pay, you know, it might be more expensive there, but, like, it doesn't encourage a lot of the overeating that goes on here in America. And I'm not trying to be rude, just didn't see obesity as much as a problem, being as much as a problem as it is here in the States. Yeah, so everything is smaller there. The cars were smaller there. I think I saw maybe 2 pickup trucks, like, the whole 4 years that I lived there.
Yeah, we don't do trucks in
I mean, it was
Europe,
like a rarity.
like they do here.
Wow, pickup truck! I feel like I'm back in Texas. It was great. Number 8, ceiling fans. I actually really didn't like that about Finland, was that there were no ceiling fans. I grew up in a house. We had ceiling fans in every room, not the bathroom or kitchen, but
why would you need a ceiling fan in Finland? It's already quite cool, quite cold. Why would you need a fan?
All the bedrooms, we had ceiling fans, and I just grew up with a fan, and that's how I fell asleep. I like to feel the air, like, moving on me, and it was really hard for me to get used to sleeping there without a fan. The air just felt so still and stagnant. Even if I would open a window, it just didn't feel the same, and so that took a lot of getting used to. But once I moved back to Texas, I was already used to it, and so then I quit using a ceiling fan. So it's all, which for me was like so much of what I grew up knowing as normal and had gotten used to, and I easily adjusted there and then continued on with those habits once I moved back here. Number 9 would be the constant darkness. And
constant darkness.
In the summer, it was like constant light. By the time your body got acclimated to one, here comes the season for the other. And so that was extremely difficult for me. The light so much wasn't as difficult as the darkness was for me. And then for those of you that don't know, in Finland, because of where it is geographically on the same latitude as Alaska, 9 would be the constant darkness. And then in the summer, it was like constant light. By the time your body got acclimated to one, here comes the season for the other. And so that was extremely difficult for me. The light so much wasn't as difficult as the darkness was for me. And then for those of you that don't know, in Finland, because of where it is geographically on the same latitude as Alaska, in way northern Finland, like all winter, like they don't have any sunlight. And then in the summer, they have like no nighttime at all. And but like in southern Finland where I live, just really, really long dark days during the winter. And then in the summer, it was like really, really long bright days where the sun didn't go down. That was hard to get used to. But at the same time, it was like kind of exciting because I had never experienced anything like that. And it was so different. And so I was like, this is cool. But my body was saying like, no, it's not. Like I stayed extremely tired all of the time during the winter, and it was hard because I was in Finnish classes and I was trying to learn this really difficult language while battling like this tiredness and fatigue that
it's got to be weird. I'm guessing like Finnish people, you're like really used to it, but for someone that's not from Finland, I can imagine those long nights and those long days. I can't imagine what that's like. I think in winter, at Christmas time, it'd be quite nice. Your Christmas lights will always be twinkling. There's something that I love about a dark Christmas day. I think it's just quite pretty.
Not getting any sunlight and adequate vitamin D and all of that, probably one of the harder things for me. So here we go, number 10, the turkulainen sense of humor. Yeah. So you ask someone in Turku, hey, how are you? How was your day? It's not terrible. It's not bad. It's not the worst day that I had. Because when you say that to me, it's like, oh, if I ask you like, how was your day? And you're like, it's not the worst. You think, to me, that translates, you were having a bad day. Like, what's going on? Did something happen? Like, what's going on? Do you need to talk?
That's just Americans, because I think Europeans, we have a dry sense of humor, or we understand a dry sense of humor and understand the nuances of that type of humor, whereas in America it's very straightforward, and I think that sense of humor probably just goes over their head. Like she said, she's just like, what? That's funny though.
That's what it translates to me. So that's not so much like their sense of humor, but more so like they have this very different kind of sarcasm. Like,
yeah,
it's this way of communication. It was just
dry,
really different. They have this kind of like dark sense of humor and just almost twisted. Right, so these were 10 things that were either culture shocks to me or things that I found difficult to get adjusted to. Some of them, many of them in the end, I'm glad that I did get adjusted to, and they're habits that I carried back home with me. And I'm grateful for learning them.
I feel like Swedish and Finnish and Norwegian and maybe Denmark, but I don't know. But that kind of way of life, the humor, I think for American people, the culture shock is just a lot worse than another European person. I feel like if I went to Finland, if I visited Finland, I don't think the culture shock would be quite as bad as hers. Although there are some things that I'm like, oh, it's a bit different. But yeah, that's quite funny, especially the last one, where she was talking about the sense of humour in Finland, and just her not getting the sarcasm and not getting the dry sense of humour. We're very dry in the UK as well. Maybe not as dry as Finland, but we understand that humour. It's a European humour. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching. Until the next one, I will see you guys later.